A former CNN anchor arrested. Don Lemon taken into custody after live streaming a church protest and badgering churchgoers. Coming, how the former CNN anchor became a federal suspect under arrest. Plus, more Epstein files are now out, 3 million more. The Department of Justice releasing another trove. This as Ghislaine Maxwell claims other Epstein accomplices got secret deals from the DOJ. And lucky news for accused killer Luigi Mangione. He has no risk of getting the death penalty. This is someone posing as an FBI agent gets arrested for trying to break Mangione out of jail. You're not going to believe what the person was armed with. Also, look at your clock. It's just under 8 hours now until midnight on the East Coast. And the sizzling question, is your government going to partially shut down? And amid all the seriousness about funding for the government, some senators, though, brought some levity to Capitol Hill. What in the world is going on here? We're going to tell you. But first, former CNN anchor Don Lemon has been arrested. 2 Sundays ago, people were worshiping inside City's church in St. Paul, Minnesota. Suddenly, agitators stormed the service. This after suspicions that the church pastor was working for ICE. During the storming of the church service, Don Lemon live-streamed and questioned churchgoers. Lemon claims he has no affiliation with the group that stormed into the church. He says he was there as a journalist covering the protest. But Attorney General Pam Bondi, in detailing the arrest of Lemon and 3 others, called it a, quote, coordinated attack on City's church.
Make no mistake, under President Trump's leadership and this administration, you have the right to worship freely and safely. And if I haven't been clear already, if you violate that sacred right, we are coming after you.
Meanwhile, Lemon's attorney, Abby Lowell, says, quote, Don has been a journalist for 30 years, and his constitutionally protected work in Minneapolis was no different than what he has always done. The First Amendment exists to protect journalists whose role it is to shine light on the truth and hold those in power accountable, end quote. Now, Lemon's former employer, CNN, also releasing a statement saying, quote, the FBI's arrest of our former CNN colleague Don Lemon raises profoundly concerning questions about press freedom and the First Amendment. The Department of Justice already failed twice to get an arrest warrant for Don and several other journalists in Minnesota, where a chief judge of the Minnesota Federal District Court found there was no evidence that there was any criminal behavior involved in their work, end quote. DHS says Lemon has been charged with federal civil rights crimes. Professor Emeritus at Harvard Law School, Alan Dershowitz, joins me. Nice to see you, Professor.
Thanks for having me.
All right, where is the line between a journalist's First Amendment right to cover a story and freedom of the press and the line where you become an aider and abetter and become part of the principal crime?
Well, the line ought to be resolved in close cases in favor of the First Amendment, in favor of journalism. Look, there are extreme cases. We know that in Gaza, Hamas members were wearing journalist jackets and pretending to be journalists and having a camera in one hand and a gun in the other hand. That's an easy case. You know, Don Lemon, who I've known for years, is a real journalist. He may have points of view. He may be a biased journalist, but the First Amendment doesn't distinguish between biased journalists and objective journalists. Walter Cronkite is not the paradigm of the First Amendment. Anybody who purports to be reporting has the benefit of journalism, and they have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he was a co-conspirator, that he was part of an effort to disrupt a church service. I think they're going to have a very hard time proving that beyond a reasonable doubt to a Minnesota jury.
What would it take, I'm just hypothetically, not Don Lemon, but to become an aider and abetter? I mean, what would you have had to do beforehand where you crossed that line?
Well, you have to have a recorded conversation, perhaps, in which they ask him to please come and join the demonstration and give credibility to the demonstration. That might cross the line. Or if he did anything to confront, say, the pastor and scream at the pastor the way some of the people did, saying, oh, my God, you know, you can't be complicit with ICE. Those might cross the line. It doesn't seem, from what I've seen from the evidence, that this crosses the line. It may cross the line of journalistic ethics, but there's an enormous difference between violating journalistic ethics, if he did, I'm not sure he did, but if he did in this case, and being able to have proof beyond a reasonable doubt that he was a co-conspirator and somebody who was complicit in the illegal violations. Look, it's a hard case even for the protesters. Martin Luther King, protested in churches. Of course, he was willing to accept the consequences. He went to the Birmingham jail and wrote one of the most beautiful letters ever written from a prison. These guys are not Martin Luther King. And so they're more like, in some ways, the people who were trying to prevent integration in the South in the 1960s and preventing federal agents from desegregating the South. So this is complex, but my prediction is it will not end in a criminal conviction for Don Lemon.
Is it possible, and hypothetically, I'm just laying out hypothetical because this is just very early on, and the First Amendment is such a strong protected right. Is it possible that one could start out as a journalist with all the protections of the First Amendment, but then once inside, is there something that you could do that sort of will convert you from having the shield of the First Amendment, or the protection of the First Amendment, to being the aider and abettor?
Yes, there's no doubt there are things you can do, but I haven't seen from the videos any evidence that Don Lemon did them. But if you really got into the face of the pastor and personally disrupted the church service, you might be violating the face statute and other statutes that probably will be part of the indictment against Don Lemon. But remember, too, you have to realize this is going to be a jury of people from a state that is not particularly sympathetic to ICE and is apparently more sympathetic to protesters. So this is going to be a hard case. And one wonders why the Justice Department decided to bring it in context where it's very likely that they, in the end, will not win.
Well, the DOJ wanted to bring this. They went to a magistrate, couldn't get an arrest warrant, said they saw insufficient evidence. Then it went to a federal district court judge, same answer. But then I think it went to a grand jury. So those citizens that you're talking about who were unwilling, who are not sympathetic to ICE, apparently were looking at the evidence that I have no idea what was shown them or not shown them behind closed doors, had a different view.
Yeah, and, as the chief judge of New York Court of Appeals once said, a grand jury can be persuaded to indict a ham sandwich if you present only a partial view of the evidence. If you, for example, don't tell the grand jurors that he's a journalist, if you just show a picture of him along with other people and leave out that fact, that could easily result in an indictment. Ultimately, the defense, and by the way, Abby Lowell is a great defense attorney. I've worked with him on cases in the past. You couldn't get a better lawyer for a case like this. He will eventually get a hold of the grand jury minutes and will be able to see whether or not there was a fair grand jury determination. It might result in a dismissal of the indictment if there wasn't.
All right, the other people there, not Don Lemon, but the other people there, what about them? Was that a crime, going into and making that noise? Is that trespass? Is that violating the civil rights of these people's right to worship? Tell me, what is that?
That is a crime, and it's a constitutional crime, constitutionally permissible crime. You can't disrupt the church service. The First Amendment does not allow you to go into a church and say, Jesus Christ didn't exist, or God is dead. You can say it outside the church, but you can't disrupt the church service, and you can't go into a church and accuse the minister of being complicit in crimes with ICE. You can do it outside. You can hand out leaflets, but you can't disrupt the church service. And the evidence strongly suggests that there's enough here to convict people who are not journalists of improperly and illegally disrupting a church service.
Well, it's sort of interesting. This is where the cameras come in. Everybody with a cell phone these days, because the protesters who did go in. I'm not talking about Don Lemon, but the protesters who did go in. They're all on some camera, someplace. I mean, because nobody escapes these iPhones.
Yeah, and that helps, obviously, produce justice in criminal cases, because the camera doesn't lie, but camera angles do show different aspects of it. And we have to know which camera pictures were shown to the grand juries, because there'll be more pictures shown in a trial, because the defense has the opportunity to present its evidence there as well, whereas the defense does not present evidence to a grand jury.
Well, where I'm hung up, and this is where it's a wait and see, is is what the grand jury heard, and if there's something different from from this, and see if they have other information. But we'll have to wait and see, because the magistrate didn't have all the information, and the federal court judge that the grand jury may have had, but we have no idea at this point. So we'll have to wait and see. Alan Dershowitz, thank you, sir.
Thanks for having me.
Meanwhile, the Justice Department has opened a federal civil rights investigation into the death of Alex Preddy. In Minneapolis last weekend, Border Patrol agents fatally shot 37-year-old Preddy, who was protesting ICE. DHS, which oversees Border Patrol and ICE, says the FBI is going to lead the shooting investigation. A civil rights investigation will look into whether Preddy's civil rights were violated or not. Coming up, Jeffrey Epstein's former accomplice, Ghislaine Maxwell, wants out of prison. She's citing secret settlements as the reason. Plus, a man with a barbecue fork and a round steel blade that resembles a pizza cutter tries to break accused murderer Luigi Mangione out of jail. That when the record continues.
Friends called him Dino, but his fans said he was the king of cool. Dean Martin sang, danced, and joked his way to stardom. Find out about the legend behind the martini glass. Watch King of Cool, the Dean Martin story on Newsmax.
Champions trust Cosequin, the #1 vet-recommended retail joint health supplement brand.
Precise designs, subtle curves, curated upgrades, elevated design for thoughtful living. Thuma.
A new year brings new threats, and Cyberman's ready for every one of them. While hackers plot their next move, Cyberman's already there, protecting families, businesses, and governments before danger can strike. This year, protect what matters most with easy-to-use, award-winning protection. With PCmatic, you get American-made protection that's faster, smarter, and stronger. Start 2026 with confidence. Visit PCmatic.com today.
Don't kibble your dog.
Oh, hey, Dr. Marty.
Hey, Bat.
But what's wrong with this? It's premium stuff.
Let's check it out. It's still kibble, which means it's ultra-processed at extremely high temperatures that destroy the nutrients in the food. But at Dr. Marty, we gently freeze-dry premium meats, fruit, and vegetables, locking in their nutrients.
Never kibbled.
You got it, kid, and they're gonna love it.
Markets closing today down. The Dow closed down 0.36%. The Nasdaq closed down at 0.94%, and the S&P 500 closed down at 0.43%. Now, this does come after earlier today, President Trump taking a Truth Social for a big announcement. He posted in part, quote, "I am pleased to announce that I'm nominating Kevin Warsh to be the chairman of the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System," end quote. In 2017, Warsh was a contention for the job, but President Trump ended up selecting current Fed Chair Jerome Powell. Powell's term ends in May. Meanwhile, today, the Justice Department released 3 million more pages of documents from the Epstein files. This comes about 6 weeks after Ghislaine Maxwell, Jeffrey Epstein's former accomplice, filed a court petition claiming there are more men involved who got secret deals. In the court pleading in December, Maxwell's lawyer wrote, quote, "New evidence reveals that there were 25 men with whom the plaintiff's lawyers reached secret settlements that could equally be considered as co-conspirators. None of these men has been prosecuted, and none has been revealed to petitioner. She would have called them as witnesses had she known," end quote. Maxwell is arguing in this newly filed petition that she should be freed from her prison sentence based on these secret settlements. Today, United States Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche was asked about Maxwell's petition. Here's what Blanche said.
I read an article that described, I wasn't aware that it was actual men that she's claiming. I thought it was accomplices, which I'm not sure if that's a reference to some of the financial institutions or other individuals that.
25.
So yes, I don't have a reaction to her filing. I can tell you that we reviewed as I just described, every single piece of paper that we have associated with these investigations, Mr. Epstein and Ms. Maxwell, and to the extent that such arrangements exist, I'm not aware of them.
And in more Ghislaine Maxwell news, on February 9th, she will testify in a closed-door hearing before the House Oversight Committee. Former United States Attorney for the Northern District of Alabama, Jay Town, joins me. Nice to see you, Jay. And, my hat goes off to the Department of Justice releasing all these records. I know that they're past the deadline, but the truth is there were so many documents it never could have been done by the date that Congress set. But, so your thoughts about today's release?
Yeah, I thought it really was a good timing, good event for the Department of Justice. I thought Todd Blanche performed very well as a masterclass in some ways by Todd. Remember, 3 million pages of documents. That's 3 Eiffel Towers worth of information that DOJ had to go through, and Congress required them to do that in 30 days. There's 2,000 videos and 180,000 images now uploaded. Think about the absurdity of this, Greta. Congress passed a law requiring the Department of Justice to upload pornography to a government website, a portal that you now have to be 18 to enter, so that people could be satisfied that Donald Trump and others were not engaged in the trafficking of young girls. That's really what that act was about, and DOJ is just complying with it now. But I thought Todd did a very good job explaining DOJ's position and the work that it took to get to today.
Yeah, I tip my hat, as I said, to the Department of Justice for getting it out even by this day, because I know the magnitude of the job and the redacting after going through the. All right, Ghislaine Maxwell wants out of jail. She has filed something saying that she's entitled to have another round, have another trial or another bite at the apple. What do you think about this? She says there are secret deals that were made.
Yeah, well, I believe the Deputy Attorney General when he says he's not aware of any secret deals. So you can't argue that there was any prosecutorial misconduct. And according to her own lawyer,
well,
she doesn't even know.
Let me just stop for a second. Let me just say, so that if there's this unfairness because there are these collateral civil deals that were kept, if there's some secret deal that she should have known about, it's not because the Justice Department didn't tell her.
That's
right.
My impression of Todd's comments earlier today. But I would also say that they're arguing that there should be other co-conspirators. That's not exculpable evidence. That means that there's just more people that are a part of the conspiracy that Ghislaine Maxwell was a part of herself and convicted of and sentenced to 20 years. I'm not sure that that would ever amount to a reversal and a retrial because there's new evidence of people that also committed the crime. The others did it too defense, I'm not sure is going to work on appeal in federal court.
So she'd have, in order to prevail on this latest pleading, she'd have to prove, and we see nothing of that now, that it was the Justice Department that did something to poison the fairness of how her case was handled.
I think that's the most important factor, Greta. The only other one I can think of, and again, she's saying she doesn't know who these people are that got the secret deals. But if somebody testified against her and had one of these secret deals and that is somehow revealed, well, then it could go to their credibility, and that might be a fairer Fifth Amendment argument. But right now, they're just sort of, it seems like an absolute fishing expedition based on no real evidence, just the idea that there's 25, we just don't know who these 25 people are. Well, what are you telling the court that they can base an appeal on?
Well, the documents that she's talking about, her case and the documents that were released today are out of the criminal prosecutions. Now let me turn to the files that came from the Epstein estate, which is what Capitol Hill has. And they want to talk to her next month in a closed hearing. And I don't know to what end does the Oversight Committee want to talk to her. What are they looking for?
Your guess is, at this point, your guess is as good as mine. I think they want to get the information that they were hoping to get from the Clintons, from her. As you reported, Greta, that both Hillary and Bill Clinton refused to abide by their subpoena from the House Oversight Committee. So perhaps they can get that information from the other end, meaning the people that were engaging with the Clintons.
But what are they looking for? But what are they looking from the estate file of Epstein that would in any way be oversight with the government, that would be part of the function of this committee at this date?
It's at this stage is really the key phrase in your question there, Greta. Personally, I'm kind of over the Epstein files after today. It's important that you report on this today, but at this point, it seems like it's just getting into, okay, who can we embarrass that's on the left or the right? And I don't know that that is going to yield any oversight function that will prohibit this in the future. Now, that may be what they're hoping to do, is find out how the Justice Department dropped the ball at any point in time so that that doesn't happen again. That's important, but they should frame it that way rather than making us guess.
Well, I was thinking, in all fairness, that if going through the Justice Department, the crime files that they're, and they should be going through just to check, the part of oversight by the media, but if they do find something, oddly enough, it's probably not this Justice Department, because we're going way back in time. It's to a prior Justice Department who may, if anybody, dropped the ball. So we'll find out, because there are going to be some very busy journalists this weekend. J-Town, thank you.
Thanks, Greta.
And it's time for our outrage of the day. A failed prison break. On Wednesday, 35-year-old Mark Anderson was arrested at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn. Why was he arrested? Well, that's the outrage. According to the United States District Court for the Eastern District of New York, when detention center staff asked to see Anderson's credentials, he falsely claimed that he is an FBI agent in possession of paperwork signed by a judge. According to Anderson, the paperwork authorized the release of a specific unnamed inmate. Anderson then revealed who the inmate was, and he named Luigi Mangione. As you know, Mangione is accused of murdering United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson outside a New York City hotel. In Anderson's backpack, and this is very interesting, was a barbecue fork and a round steel blade that resembles a pizza cutter. Yesterday, Anderson was charged with impersonating an FBI agent. He's now being held in that Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn. And now today, Mangione, who has been charged in New York with second-degree murder, as well as 4 federal counts, 2 of stalking, 1 of murder, and 1 of using a firearm to commit murder, got some big news that he is probably very happy about. A federal judge ruled that Mangione will not face the death penalty. This ruling is a loss for federal prosecutors who were seeking the death penalty for Mangione. They may appeal. Coming up, a new hardline from President Trump on Iran. Are we going to war? That when the record continues.
I'm a martial artist, a skydiver, a pilot, and all of them require your feet to work. Get up in the morning, and it felt like I was standing on marbles on my heel. When I went into the Good Feet store, the fitting was personalized. It was all about me. You put in the arch supports, and your day becomes better, and the sun shines, the unicorns run by, and, you know, it's a good life. I'm Randy, and that's my Good Feet story.
See for yourself with a free personalized arch support fitting at the Good Feet store.
When I first decided to invest in gold, I was a bit nervous and unsure how to start. Luckily, I found Noble Gold Investments. From the very first call, they made investing easy. No pushy sales tactics, no gimmicks, and no confusing free silver offers with hidden fees. Just honest advice tailored to my needs, giving me confidence every step of the way. If you're new to gold investing or want a partner you can trust, visit noblegoldinvestments.com.
When it comes to my daily heart health supplement, I've got 3 rules. It's got to be plant-based, it's got to be doctor recommended, and it's got to be Super Beets from Human.
Super Beets is the #1 cardiologist recommended beet brand for heart health support with clinically studied grapeseed extract for nearly 2 times more effective blood pressure support than diet and exercise alone.
Super Beets works. I swear by it, and I know you're going to love it too.
Try Super Beets today at human.com.
I lost 110 pounds. You couldn't tell at all because of my excess skin. So Nobella changed that.
Introducing the new Lift EX, the just one visit total body transformation.
I decided to give Sonobello a try. You can see my waist.
Lift EX is our breakthrough 360-degree body lift alternative that sculpts, tightens, and lifts your stomach, waist, thighs, and backside. And Lift EX is exclusively available at Sonobello. Easy monthly plans make your best body more affordable than ever. Call to book your free consultation today.
Joining us is Dr. Drew from the Wellness Company with advice for dealing with seasonal colds and flu. Doctor?
Cold and flu season is here, and every year you or a loved one gets sick. Your doctor can't see you. Waiting in a crowded urgent care is brutal. This is a particularly bad cold and flu season, and it's why doctors suggest every family needs an emergency medical kit. Your medical emergency kit is filled with essential prescriptions. It includes antibiotics like generic Z-Pak to get well faster, amoxicillin for pneumonia, strep throat, ear infections, plus prescriptions for nausea and UTIs, and even ivermectin. It's easy. Just match your symptoms to the prescription in your guidebook or call the telemedicine doctor standing by. Take your medication early and feel better faster. Having a medical emergency kit is like having an urgent care in your home. No waiting to see a doctor, no lines at the pharmacy.
Smart advice. We've shared the website and discount code below to save viewers $45. Order now and your kit will be rushed to your door. Thank you, doctor.
Ready to make your dream kitchen a reality? Then Cabinets to Go is the place to go. Get the craftsmanship, styles, and features you want at a price you can't find anywhere else. And right now, get it all at 0% for 48 months. Only at Cabinets to Go. Designed to wow.
When I'm congested, I can't breathe, can't sleep. That's why I Navage. The powered suction gives me the power to remove congestion fast by flushing out germs, mucus, bacteria, and viruses. In like 30 seconds, I can feel the results.
Get #1 doctor-recommended Navage.
A new warning. President Trump saying this while speaking to reporters about Iran.
We have a large armada, flotilla, call it whatever you want, heading toward Iran right now, even larger than what we had in Venezuela.
Are you giving Iran any kind of deadline to make a deal before potentially taking
Only
military
they
action?
know for sure.
Have you communicated that to them
Yeah,
directly?
I have.
Do you have a timeline for when you're going to pull back potentially the federal presence there?
No, we'll see how it all works out. You know, they have to float someplace. They might as well float near Iran. But it's a rough situation going on. They were going to hang 837 people, and I told them, if you do it, you're going to pay a price like nobody's ever paid before. They pulled back. I appreciated that. But a lot of people are being killed. So we'll see what happens. I can say this, they do want to make a deal.
What is Iran saying? Today in Turkey, Iran's foreign minister claims Iran is ready to resume fair and equitable talks with America. But the foreign minister added, Iran's missiles that, of course, can reach Tel Aviv will not be subject to any negotiation. Former Special Representative Iran under President Trump, Elliott Abrams, joins me. Nice to talk to you, sir. And is there any possibility, just sort of globally, if Iran wants to talk about its nuclear enrichment program, but it won't give up those missiles that can hit Israel, is that a deal breaker for the United States?
I don't think President Trump really wants to get into a military fight with Iran right now. So I think if he thinks there's a real chance of getting them to back off on enrichment, to give up the enriched uranium they have, to stop trying to build a nuclear weapon, I think he might do it.
Well, back in 2015, we had the deal, the nuclear deal, the JCPOA, which, by the way, its major restrictions, had it stayed in place, if Trump hadn't pulled out during his first term, a lot of them would have been, we would have passed it, and it would have sunset in last October, and it would, yeah, and then in 4.5 years to be totally finished and done, and they could enrich all they wanted. So we'd be deep into it. But the enrichment, they cheated. So why this time, if they said, okay, we're not going to enrich, why would we believe them this time?
Well, we shouldn't. I mean, whatever they agree to, we won't try to build a bomb. The IAEA will have 24/7 access that John Kerry promised us. That's not going to happen. And I actually think the president is in a bit of a corner here. As you've said, any nuclear deal is going to look like 2015, and he has rightly denounced that deal. It's not going to include missiles, probably, and that was a weakness of the Obama deal. But if he just pushes it off, he says, let's try, and we'll negotiate for several months. We're getting close to the November elections. I think the problem is that he can use force. I mean, we're getting the forces there, the carrier. But it's hard to see what is the one and done. You know, the equivalent of killing Soleimani or Midnight Hammer, that's over when you announce it. This would have to be a larger strike on Iran.
Well, Soleimani was because he killed a lot of our people, so that was, he needed to be eliminated, for that reason. If in Iran, though, I don't know. Last June we degraded their nuclear facilities. Degraded. I never knew to what extent degraded. I thought we had a couple years on it. Obviously not. So I don't understand. Is that unless that regime is gone, I just don't see what possible deal could be had.
You can imagine a deal, but they're not going to do it. I mean, a deal in which they say, okay, we give up. We give up the nuke program. You can inspect it. All the enriched uranium, you can ship it out. We won't build any more missiles. We won't help Hezbollah anymore or the Houthis anymore. They're not going to do that. And especially after all of these protests, because the Supreme Leader is going to think, I will look weak if I make all these concessions to the Americans. So if you want a good deal, a tough deal, I think we're not going to get it. And I think that leads then to tough decisions for the president about what are the targets. We didn't completely eliminate the nuclear program. We could take out the rest of it. We could hit the missile program. And the bigger decision, does he want to try to hit the Revolutionary Guards or the Supreme Leader himself? Does he want to try to decapitate the regime?
Well, the Supreme Leader is about 89. So, I mean, we could also, this sounds terrible, but a little bit run out the clock perhaps on him. I don't know, but I don't know what's next in line. I mean, that's another thing is that when we went into Venezuela, we had a next in line, the vice president, whether we like her or not. If in the situation in Iran is profoundly different because, who is next in line who's not part of the regime?
Right. I mean, they'll choose somebody else to be Supreme Leader, but I think the Revolutionary Guards are going to have a larger and larger role. This is going to be less of a theocracy and more of a plain old military dictatorship. So the president's choices, as I say, are really tough ones for him to make. This is not like Midnight Hammer, where you've got, a finite target, go and get it, it's over the next day. Because if we hit some of these sites and the Iranians hit back at us, then we're into round two. If they hit the Israelis are going to hit them. It's another round two. So he's going to have, I think, a tough week ahead of him.
I assume that Israel must be talking with us right now about this because they are in the crosshairs with Iran. I mean, would you expect that?
Yes, I think you've seen, for example, Saudi Arabia say, we're not going to let our airspace be used. That's because they don't want to get hit on the rebound by Iran. The Israelis do figure they're going to get hit by Iran if the United States attacks Iran. So they're worried about air defense, and I'm sure they're lining up their targets in Iran as well. And they'll go after those missile launchers. That's the first thing they'll try to hit.
Well, I can see, sir, looking at the screen that you're about as disciplined as I am with no pets on the furniture rule. I might say that my dogs sleep on the furniture, too, and I spot your dog. He's very cute. Thank you, or she. Elliott Abrams, thank you for joining me, sir.
Thank you.
Now, traffic in Washington, D.C. can be a lot. It's not a place you might think can handle race cars. Well, get ready. This summer, things are changing. Today, President Trump signed an executive order to bring the Indy car race to Washington. The big event will be held August 21st to the 23rd. The race will be part of the America 250 celebrations this year. 2 months before this event, a UFC fight is happening at the White House on President Trump's 80th birthday, June 14. And British airline pilots, they need to yell, "Look out!" That's because on Monday, a British Airways flight lost a wheel during takeoff. The plane was headed to London's Heathrow Airport. Despite losing a wheel, the flight kept going. About 9 hours later, the plane landed, obviously safely in London because you haven't heard about it. Airport officials say the falling wheel did not injure anyone. The plane that lost the wheel is an Airbus model. That model has a total of 12 main wheels plus 2 in the front for the nose gear. The FAA says it will investigate the incident. It's unclear why the wheel fell off. As for how many people were on that flight, there's no official listing of passengers, but these planes do carry about 400 passengers. Did the passengers even know that a wheel fell off? It's unclear whether the pilots kept that one a secret. But I don't know about you, but if I were on that flight, I would not have wanted to know we were missing a wheel as I started a 9-hour flight. I would have rather learned that after a safe landing, as they all probably did. An incident report has not yet been made public. Coming up, shutdown, showdown. Will either party give to avert a shutdown at midnight tonight? That when the record continues.
Hi, I'm Charlotte McBride. I love working at Newsmax because every day we bring you honest reporting with real conversations, no spin. We're not telling you how to think, we're just giving you the facts and letting you decide what's best for you and your family.
This is the story of the one who knows well-prepared workdays take off smoothly and land right on time. That's why he counts on Grainger. With next-day delivery and professional-grade products, Grainger helps ensure he, his crew, and thousands of passengers fly through the day like clockwork. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
If you resolve to lose weight, but it isn't happening, studies show constant hunger is probably why. Dr. Drew is with us to explain how to change that.
This is exactly the point. Hunger is a biological force, a drive created by powerful hormones and brain signals. So to lose meaningful weight, you have to quiet that drive, quiet your appetite.
And that's where Drop helps?
Yes, while injections can work, they are costly and they're risky. That's why we created Drop, one of the most exciting weight loss discoveries we've seen. It's a breakthrough, a peptide you just add to water, no needles, no pain. And what people love about it is how Drop helps control the appetite. So they're not constantly thinking about food, and that changes everything.
Do you need a prescription to get Drop?
No, that's one of the best parts. You just add it to water. This is the needle-free way to finally reach your weight loss goals.
Thank you, doctor.
Save $100 with promo code SLIM at dropthepounds.com/slim.
Don't go! I got to. It's time to screen for colon cancer. Also, I'm just going to the porch.
Cologuard is for people 45 plus, at average risk, not high risk.
False positive and negative results may occur. Ask your provider or request Cologuard online.
Immuno 150 may be the best food supplement in the world because it contains 70 plant minerals and 80 other nutrients. The 3 videos on our website tell you how this product and 7 times more minerals can improve your health.
Anybody who's struggling with alcohol should try Or Health. Within a week, the cravings were completely gone. Or Health is safe, science-backed, and it works. I couldn't believe how easy it was. Alcohol doesn't run my life anymore.
Text Newsmax to 710-710 to learn more.
Hi, I'm Ben Cozy. Isn't traveling a pain in the neck? You're cramped, uncomfortable, and forget about getting any rest. There's nothing cozy about airplane seats or hard plastic benches, and those so-called travel pillows, they just don't cut it. You don't need another travel pillow. You need Be Cozy, the world's most comfortable neck pillow. Trapped in the middle seat? Wrap Be Cozy around your neck to stop chin drop and bobblehead napping. Smashed up against the window? Fold Be Cozy over and tuck it onto your shoulder for super side support. Frequent flyer miles got you sitting aisle? Turn Be Cozy to the side for the perfect pillow position. Everyone wants to be cozy, so get the world's most comfortable travel neck pillow and be cozy just like me, Ben Cozy. You get to be cozy. Everyone gets a Be Cozy. Only Be Cozy has patented overlapping arms so you get double support and the comfort you need in any seat on any trip. Go online right now and get this exclusive TV offer. Buy one Be Cozy, get one 50% off. Get yours now.
Check your watch. We are less than 8 hours from midnight Eastern in a possible partial government shutdown. This time it would be, as I noted, partial. Last night there was optimism a shutdown would be averted. Democrats reached a deal with President Trump to separate funding for the Department of Homeland Security, but some Republican senators don't like the deal.
I don't think the Democrats can propose anything unless it looks like they are gutting Homeland Security and ICE like a fish, and that's not something that the Republicans are going to vote for. So I hope I'm wrong on this, but I think the department's going to be shut down for a while. It's not going to impact ICE. We put a lot of extra money in one big beautiful bill for ICE.
Are you okay with splitting off DHS funding and doing a contact resolution? Have to go back out to the House?
No, I'm not okay with it, but that's where we find ourselves. And so sometimes to fund the government, you end up having to vote for things that 48 hours ago you wouldn't have dreamed you would vote for.
Negotiation is the wrong word. We ought to be making demands and shut down the Department of Homeland Security if it fails to comply with basic rights and liberties that are a part of the legal fabric of this country, fundamental to good law enforcement and policing all around the country.
Okay, well, there's a slight glitch. If the Senate passes a bill that differs in any way from the one the House passed last week, the House of Representatives must then vote and pass that one. But here's the problem. The House is in recess and is not scheduled to return to Washington until Monday. Here are the agencies that will be impacted if we have a partial shutdown. DHS, the War Department, Health and Human Services, Housing and Urban Development, Transportation, State, Labor, Treasury, among others. Meanwhile, HHS says Medicare and Medicaid payments will go out even if there is a partial shutdown tonight. Social Security Administration says senior citizens and people with disabilities will still get paid if there is a partial shutdown. Department of Labor says unemployed people will also continue to receive their benefits. Florida Republican Senator and member of the Committee on Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs, Senator Rick Scott, joins me. Nice to see you, sir.
It's nice to see you with Gretchen. We should listen to what the Democrats are saying, and we'll know what's going to happen. They are saying they want to defund ICE. So right now we're not going to be fully funding ICE.
Before we even get to that, though, I want a quick thing, because there's a lot going on on Capitol Hill, and I don't want this to slip by. The Clear Labels Act that you're introducing, because I do want to talk about the shutdown, but what is this Clear Labels Act? Because it's bipartisan. I think it's, I think it might be important for the American people.
Oh, absolutely. So think about this. When you buy clothes, you know where they're made. You buy fruit and vegetables, you know where they're made. When you put medicine in your body, you have no idea where the ingredients come from or where it's made. So I'm working with my colleagues on the Special Committee on Aging, the Senate Special Committee on Aging, for a bill that just is, it's real simple. You're going on the label, you'll be able to find out where the ingredients come from. You'll find out, where it was manufactured. And here's what should scare you. 90% of the generics we take in our country are made in India and China. Right? Most of the ingredients come out of China. So number one, if they are safe, we don't know because our FDA doesn't do enough inspections to figure that out. Number two, there's been studies to say they aren't safe. Number three, what if China or India wants to hold something back? They can, they have. I think what China's doing right now with rare earth, what India did during the COVID crisis. So this is the craziest thing that we don't know what we have in our body, and we are not getting things made back in America. So what this will do is give you information so you can make an informed choice. I know what Americans are going to do. They're going to say, I want to buy American products.
Well, I just wanted to slip that one in because I think it's an important bill and it's being overlooked by all the discussion about the possible shutdown. So now let me bring you to the possible shutdown. As I understand it, ICE is going to be funded no matter what. That's the Democrats' objection to this. So what are we going to lose for DHS for the next 2 weeks?
Well, first off, everything will get shut. Anything that didn't get passed back in December will be shut down. You listed the agencies. They'll be shut down until the House comes back. Even after the House comes back, in 2 weeks, if we don't pass a new bill, all the parts of Homeland Security, the Coast Guard, TSA, FEMA, ICE, all those will be shut down. Now, some people believe under the big, beautiful bill last year, all that ICE funded was new hires. So it's not clear that the Democrats are not going to get exactly what they want with this, the fact that ICE will be shut down. Now, I think we have no leverage after tonight. We have no leverage after what we do tonight at all. So why, when the Democrats are telling us they want to shut down ICE, why do we think we're going to get a bill done in 2 weeks? We're not. That's not going to happen. But guess what the Democrats get? They get everything they want. They get all the earmarks. Chuck Schumer got $1 million for an elevator in the Met, with their money for a Jacob's Pillow Festival, $500,000 to help immigrants in New York City. This is the craziest thing that's happening right now, that ICE is not for sure being funded. Homeland Security is not for sure being funded, but all the Democrat priorities are getting funded tonight.
Well, FEMA is sort of a rough one to cut at this point. I mean, we're all under feet of snow. So the FEMA, I think, would be a very unpopular one to try to cut or to hold back right now.
Well, I mean, look, they're doing it right now. I mean, they're saying the Democrats are saying they don't care. They know, they've said, look, they've been clear. They want to shut down ICE. Let's listen to them, what they're telling us. We have no leverage after tonight. So I've got an amendment. Mike Lee has amendments to get rid of some of these earmarks. But this is going to be a problem. I don't personally believe Homeland Security will be funded in 2 weeks. So Homeland Security will be shut down, even if the other things get passed by the House on Monday, right? And then there will be no new money for ICE. And so I hope, and we're going to learn if there was enough money in the big beautiful bill to fund ICE. We'll find that out over time.
Senator Rick Scott from the great state of Florida. Thank you, sir. And amid the seriousness to avert a partial shutdown, some senators are having bipartisan fun. Earlier this month in the NFL playoffs, the Houston Texans beat the Pittsburgh Steelers. Texas Senator Ted Cruz had made a friendly wager with Pennsylvania Senator John Fetterman and Dave McCormick. Since Cruz's Texans won the playoff game, it was time for the Pennsylvania senators to pay up.
For you to find that, it's like, I brought this on myself.
It was your idea.
We honored our.
We honored it. Absolutely.
Yeah, it was a bet well taken, and we lost. And we congratulate you, and we're sorry you lost the playoffs.
And I'll confess, I did not make the same wager with Elizabeth Warren because I was less optimistic about the game. And I'm really glad not to be wearing that garbage.
I fell asleep, and I woke up to his text. He's like, "Oh my God, it's a disaster."
Yeah, this is the guy who gets me in the bet, and I'm watching this thing. I'm going, "This is a train wreck." Right there.
Yeah, they're gonna say right there.
This right here is perfect.
So, yeah,
this
slaw,
is in the new food
fries,
table.
Right in there.
All right.
Right there. Okay.
That is fantastic.
Okay, that big sandwich is from Permantis Brothers, a Pittsburgh specialty. Also, good thank you by Senator Cruz for now wagering with Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren. A week later in the playoffs, the Texans then got beaten by Senator Warren's New England Patriots. That was not, by the way, the only fun happening on Capitol Hill. Missouri Senator Josh Hawley had a push-up contest with a West Point cadet. The results may surprise you.
On your marks. Get set. Push.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Both started strong, but it was the 46-year-old senator who outlasted the young cadet. Hawley did about 70 push-ups in defeating the cadet. So while politics can be mean, it is fun indeed to see elected officials getting along and being good sports with fun wagers. Coming up, what does President Trump want from Cuba? That when the record continues.
48% of Americans don't get enough magnesium, which is vital for bone, nerve, and muscle health. I recommend Cunol's Magnesium Glycinate. It's formulated for high absorption and is gentle on the stomach. Cunol, the brand I trust.
I've had the highest mountains, I've had the deepest rivers. I'll take it in, but don't look down. 'Cause I'm on top of the world, I'm on top of the world, I've been waiting to smile, the whole minute.
Champions trust Cosequin, the #1 vet-recommended retail joint health supplement brand and official joint health supplement of the Westminster Dog Show.
Do you have a yo-yo smile? Sometimes yellow, sometimes white. It's a constant battle between everyday stains and whitening treatments. Until now, get Smile Actives, the daily teeth whitening breakthrough that gives you a more youthful smile and helps you keep it.
At 43 years old, I don't mess around with products that waste my time. Smile Actives is easy, and it works. No gloopy trays, no messy strips. Just add a little bit on top of your toothpaste when you brush your teeth. And ta-da, white teeth.
Just add Smile Actives to your favorite toothpaste and watch the magic happen. Our patented Polyclean microfoam lifts away deep stains for a dramatically younger and whiter smile.
You have a choice. You can have those yellow teeth and just be old Nana or Pop-Pop, or you can be smiling and dazzling, full of confidence. I love my white teeth.
Scan, click, or call for your whitest smile yet. And if you order right now, we'll double your whitening free. Get an extra Smile Actives as our free gift to you, but only while supplies last.
I drink coffee every day. I started noticing that my teeth were not as bright as I'd like them to be, a little dingy. The Smile Active, it works. Got your boy gleaming.
100% of users saw whiter teeth. Smile Actives lifts away even the toughest stains from coffee, wine, and food, gently restoring your bright, youthful smile. Plus, it's safe for veneers, crowns, and dentures.
It's really a no-brainer if you want to whiten your teeth.
Clinically shown to brighten your teeth 5 shades whiter in just 7 days.
If you could use something so easy like Smile Actives to take yellow teeth to white teeth, Why wouldn't you?
Act now. Get Smile Actives for just $24.95 and we'll double your order. Free. But hurry, this deal won't last. Smile Actives is guaranteed to work. Whiten your teeth or get your money back. No questions asked. Don't wait. Get Smile Actives for just $24.95 and we'll send you a second bottle absolutely free. That's free shipping. A free extra bottle. That's an incredible 58% savings. Scan the code, go to smileactives.com or call to get your beautiful whiter smile now.
Not again.
Your cold is coming! Your cold is coming!
Thanks, Revere.
We really need to keep Zycam in the house.
Only if you want to shorten your cold. When you feel a cold coming, shorten it with Zycam.
President Trump is now going after Cuba. The Trump administration is upping the pressure on the communist country, but why? Foreign Affairs correspondent Alex Salvi has the latest. Alex?
Yeah, Greta, it's a question that we're all trying to answer together. The president is giving us little glimpses of what the objective is here, but he's taking it very seriously. In fact, President Trump announcing that the United States is actually going to be declaring a national emergency on this very subject. He says that Cuba is aligning itself with hostile foreign actors, terrorist groups too, and now he's even moving to punish other countries that are supplying Cuba with oil. In fact, the president signed an executive order on Thursday night stating that the policies of the current government amount to what he referred to as an extraordinary threat, including its alignment with Russia, China, Iran, Hamas, and Hezbollah. And now to address the threat, Trump is ordering a tariff mechanism that imposes additional duties on imports from countries that provide oil to Cuba, a country that he spoke about during Thursday's premiere of the Melania movie.
Cuba is a failing nation, and you have to feel badly for Cuba. They've treated people very badly. We have a lot of Cuban Americans who really were treated very badly, and they'd probably like to go back. And no, I'm not trying to, but it looks like it's something that's just not going to be able to survive. I think Cuba will not be able to survive.
The administration says that the latest action builds on Trump's first-term Cuba policy that reversed the Obama-era appeasement strategy. Secretary of State Marco Rubio this week appearing before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, laying out the new Cuba doctrine. He says that the first step is ramping up the pressure on the communist government, and the ultimate goal is removing it from power altogether.
Will you make a public commitment today to rule out U.S. regime change in Cuba?
Regime change?
Yes.
Oh, no, I think we would love to see the regime there change. We would like to, that doesn't mean that we're going to make it change, but we would love to see it change. There's no doubt about the fact that it would be of great benefit to the United States if Cuba was no longer governed by an autocratic regime.
And with the World Baseball Classic set to begin this spring, the Cuban national team is hoping that the United States will grant it visas to play in Puerto Rico. It could be the first step in restoring relations with Cuba or a sign that diplomacy is not working, assuming, of course, that the current leadership is still in power when this tournament kicks off this March, Greta.
And boy, would Secretary of State Marco Rubio like to have things change in Cuba. He's a Cuban American.
Yeah, I mean, Venezuela, I think, was the first step. And now they said that the Venezuela strategy was part of the Cuba strategy, right? Venezuela was supplying Cuba with essentially all of its oil. And Mexico is one of the few countries that are still supplying some oil to Cuba. We know that President Trump has been in close contact with President Claudia Sheinbaum over the past couple days.
It's only 90 miles from Key West or something.
That's right.
Alex Salvi, thank you. Have a great weekend.
You too.
And some sad news. Emmy Award-winning actress Catherine O'Hara, who made us all laugh, has passed away. Today, her talent agency, Creative Arts Agency, confirmed O'Hara died earlier today at her home in Los Angeles following a brief illness. O'Hara was famous for her work in Schitt's Creek and Home Alone. Catherine O'Hara was 71 years old.
Joining us is Dr. Drew from the Wellness Company with advice for dealing with seasonal colds and flu. Doctor?
Cold and flu season is here, and every year you or a loved one gets sick. Your doctor can't see you. Waiting in a crowded urgent care is brutal. This is a particularly bad cold and flu season, and it's why doctors suggest every family needs an emergency medical kit. Your medical emergency kit is filled with essential prescriptions. It includes antibiotics like generic Z-Pak to get well faster, amoxicillin for pneumonia, strep throat, ear infections, plus prescriptions for nausea and UTIs, and even ivermectin. It's easy. Just match your symptoms to the prescription in your guidebook or call the telemedicine doctor standing by. Take your medication early and feel better faster. Having a medical emergency kit is like having an urgent care in your home. No waiting to see a doctor, no lines at the pharmacy.
Smart advice. We've shared the website and discount code below to save viewers $45. Order now and your kit will be rushed to your door. Thank you, Doctor.
Nobody knows Corvettes like McMulkin Chevrolet, the world's largest Corvette dealer for 5 consecutive years. Set apart by its name alone, Corvette delivers a legacy of American craftsmanship, and a vehicle that sets the bar for performance cars deserves a buying experience that beats it. With hundreds of Corvettes in stock and ready for immediate delivery nationwide, it's no wonder Corvette enthusiasts from across the USA keep coming back to McMulkin Chevrolet.
I'm former Mets manager Terry Collins. The Tunnel Towers Foundation is very important to me, and I look for ways to try to support them any way I can. If a first responder is killed in the line of duty, T2T will pay off the mortgage for their family. That's just one of the ways T2T makes a difference. You can support their cause as well by donating $11 a month. Go to T2T.org, let's go Mets, and let's help Tunnel Towers.
This isn't your average pill. This is Rose Sparks. Rose Sparks. Rose Sparks. Rose Sparks.
Rose Sparks is a fast-acting solution because it dissolves under your tongue.
Rose Sparks.
Guys, get started today.
Connect with a provider to find out if Rose Sparks are right for you.
Omaha Steaks is America's original butcher.
Hold on, steak voiceover guy. I got this. Omaha Steaks is America's original butcher. But what's that mean? It means all these steaks are USDA certified tender.
Well, she's right.
Yeah. They love it. I love that they love it. This is why you get Omaha Steaks.
Right now, get 4 USDA certified tender steaks free when you visit omahasteaks.com/tender.
Skip the grocery store and
skip the grocery store and get Omaha Steaks today.
Precise designs, subtle curves, curated upgrades, elevated design for thoughtful living. Thuma.
Don't kibble your dog.
Oh, hey, Dr. Marty.
Hey, back.
But what's wrong with this? It's premium stuff.
Let's check it out. It's still kibble, which means it's ultra-processed at extremely high temperatures that destroy the nutrients in the food. But at Dr. Marty, we gently freeze-dried premium meats, fruit, and vegetables, locking in their nutrients.
Never kibbled.
You got it, kid, and they're gonna love it.
Sponsored by Dr. Marty Nature's Blend, the health of fresh food with the convenience of kibble. Visit drmartypets.com/TV.
During the major winter storm last weekend, a calf was born on a farm in Mount Sterling, Kentucky. The temperatures were well below freezing. The calf was freezing. So the family who owns the farm and the calf brought her inside their home to stay warm. After they cleaned her and warmed her up, the calf quickly bonded with their children. The family posted these sweet photos on social media. The 3-year-old son in the family gave the calf her name. He named her Sally. The family said the next day Sally was reunited with her mother and is doing well. Thanks for watching. Ed Henry, The Big Take is next. Have a great weekend.